leaving you that.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, that's good, it works, right? Everyone can hear okay? We're gonna go ahead and get started. It's always good when you have to add extra chairs, right? So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our Family Information Series. I think I know most of you, but if you don't know me, my name is Emily Martinez, and I'm Stark DD's Community Services and Supports Director. I know it's a little bit of a different name, right? Our department used to be called Service and Support Administration and Investigative Services. Really, really long name, right? And recently, we added a new unit for provider compliance and provider support. So we changed our name. Nothing about us has changed, other than we've added that provider support. So our new department name is Community Services and Support. So I just thought I'd put a little plug in for that so people know what that's all about. We have been working really hard to try every couple months, and actually it seems like over the last couple months, every month, having a family information series where in the evening we can bring in families here and provide some information and opportunity for you all to network with each other. And we're so thankful that you all are joining us. I know some of you come to every single session, and some of you are coming to those that are applicable to you, and certainly we want to hear from you if they are helpful to you, and if there are topics that you're really interested in, we certainly want to know. So just a couple housekeeping things. Right outside this door, through the double doors here and around the corner of the restrooms, in case anyone needs to use the restroom, if you could just please make sure you sign in over here by Mary Lou. And there's also handouts for tonight's presentation. We thought it was important for everyone to come away with some handouts. There's also 2 bookmarks that are over there. And this first one is in honor of this month, which is DD Awareness Month. So it's got some people first language on it, some really great information, so we hope you'll take some of those. And then additionally, we have our Stark DD Navigation Tool bookmarks. And the Stark DD Navigation Tool is on our website, starkdd.org. And it is a navigation tool that was created with lots of work for really everyone from our entire agency. And it's an online resource that helps link you to services, supports, information, videos, and forms for really every stage of someone's life. It's something that a lot of work was put into, so certainly please check that out. The information about it is on that bookmark. So I'm going to introduce you to Mary Lou and Jessica, who are kind of over here, and they'll give a wave. They're going to be speaking in a little bit about participant-directed goods and services. But at the beginning here, I'm going to talk a little bit about Fix the List and then Provider Guide Plus. I also do want to note that one of the handouts was next month's Family Information Series. So for April, we're doing caregiver burnout. And Teresa Newadomski, who's from the Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities, will be coming. That's really her specialty area. And she is going to actually have the whole night dedicated to caregiver burnout. And she's going to talk about tips, tools, resources, and actually bring some tools and resources with her to help families, loved ones, neighbors, friends to deal with caregiver burnout, which was something that lots and lots of families talked about. So you'll find that really helpful as well. So I am first going to talk about which I'm imagining most of you are here about. So who here is interested about the waiver waitlist rule? Right, just a show of hands. Most of us, right? Okay. So you all should have these, which are frequently asked questions, which were in the handouts. And I'm going to go over these, and I thought it would be easier for you guys to have them in hand while I go over them. And there's also more over there if you didn't get one, or if you need to take an extra one with you. Okay, we'll grab more. Okay, so first it's important to know that we understand the current list is not working. I think statewide, there's inconsistency, right? Every year you get a letter, this is where I'm at on the wait list. It very rarely changes, and sometimes it's confusing why it did change. We have lots of people that are on the waiting list that aren't really in need of a service. And we have lots of people on the waiting list who are in need of a service, but their number is very, very low. So as a state, we totally understand that it's not working in its current status. And so the department and many others came together with the stakeholder group and really looked at how can we revise the waiver waiting list to make it work for people. So it's a positive thing, right? It's different and change is hard, but it's a positive thing. It's something that really does need to be addressed. That waiting list is just not working, and we need to be more consistent statewide. We need to be addressing everyone's needs. So the new rule addresses statewide consistency, and it addresses use of a consistent tool statewide. So every county in the state will have to use an electronic assessment. And right now, it's really up to the county board how they assess and what tool they use. So I think that's a good thing, right? Because consistency is really important. From one county to another, it's important that the same tool is used and the same questions are asked. Really, really important to know, if you have a need, let your county board know. Really, really important. So I'm going to just take a couple minutes and go over this frequently asked questions. For me, this was just such a great resource because it was just very clear and concise, and I think answered everyone's questions. Certainly I can take more questions if you have them though. Why is the wait list changing? Well, it's changing because it's not working. That would be the main issue that we are having now, and we need to move forward with a more consistent process statewide. Why is this wait list going to be better? The new wait list process individually identifies those who have a current need for waiver services through a uniform use of a statewide tool, which I think is really essential to our state, that we're being consistent. Again, it's the same tool that's going to be used statewide, and these changes clarify the waiver enrollment process, and the intent is that it will lead to increased availability of services for individuals that we serve. Does the new rule ensure people will receive a waiver? I know that's everyone's question, right? No, it does not. It delineates how we use an assessment to determine someone's need, and it tells us the method that we're allowed to enroll people on a waiver based on those needs. The next point is, will people get an IO or individual options waiver faster? The short answer to that is no. It's not going to speed up any process. It's not intended to speed up the process. It's intended to make the process more consistent, and it's intended to address everyone's need on an ongoing basis and help those with an immediate need handle those needs first. What happens if someone has a current need for services? If someone has a current need for services in the next 12 months, you should contact your local county board and request the uniform statewide assessment. And that's pretty much what everybody is already doing now, right? And so if you're on the current list, you're going to get an assessment. If you're not on the current list and you have a need, then you would let your county board, Stark GD, know, or if you live in another county, you would let that county know, and they would have to come out and assess you. Okay? If a person has a current unmet need for service within the next 12 months, does that mean they'll be enrolled on a waiver within that next year? No. What that means is that the county board has to assess you and determine if you have an immediate need, which means I need something right now, because if I don't get something in the next 30 days, something is going to happen to me, my caregiver, a loved one. I'm in a dangerous situation. Okay, that would be immediate need that needs addressed right now. That could be addressed with a waiver. It could also be addressed with other alternative services. Could be a community resource, could be a natural support, could be something locally funded, which would mean county board funds. Yes?
When you say contact your county board, are you talking like our SSA?
Yes, you would contact your SSA.
Okay.
If you are someone who isn't set up with services yet, you would just call our main line and they would link you up with our intake department. if you don't have an SSA? Great question. If you have a current need, that means I have a need that needs to be met within the next 12 months. And that would be whether you're on our current waiver waiting list or you're just kind of coming in through the door. You have an assessment, it would say, yes, you have a current need that needs met within the next 12 months. Your team led by your SSA, your Service and Support Administrator, would need to work with you to help address that need. So within that next 12 months, that doesn't necessarily mean you would be enrolled on a waiver. Okay, that means the need needs to be addressed, and again, that could be through a community resource, a natural support, like a family member, local funding, or if it rose to the level of an immediate need, then yes, it could be a waiver. What is the order of enrollment? So if you have a current need and you're on this new waiting list that will be created, how will you be enrolled on a waiver after we've met everybody that has an immediate need? The method of enrollment would be first, people with an immediate need that require waiver funding to address the immediate need right away. And that's what we're doing right now. And that's why the wait list can be a bit confusing, because you can be on the wait list, but someone could be way below you and have an emergent need. Perhaps their parent has passed away and they don't have anyone to live with and there's no one else to help them. They would become someone with an immediate need, and we would want to address that immediate need right away. Okay? Secondary to that would be people that have met multiple criteria for a current need and they've been on that list for 12 months. Then next would be people with multiple criteria that have been on that list for less than 12 months. And then finally, we can enroll people on waivers that only have one criteria or one major issue, and they're on that list, meaning we've assessed them and they have a current need. Does anybody have questions about that? I know it's a little bit confusing, but basically what this is doing is it's really spelling out statewide a consistent approach for meeting everyone's needs. And what it means is that if you have a current need, we don't want you to think, I'm gonna get my waiver. We want you to think, I'm gonna work with my team, and my team led by my SSA is gonna help me meet that need. It may or may not be with a waiver. We have lots of community resources, and we're trying to continue to develop those more and more. StarkDB is committed to making sure people's needs are met. And I think for so long, we've all waited for those letters, right? What number am I on the waiting list? When really what we want is people to say, I have a need. Let me as your SSA come in and help you address that need, whether it's with a waiver or not. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So this is what confuses me about this thing.
Uh-huh.
So my son got diagnosed with autism when he was 2. They gave me a list of things and said, get him on the wait list.
Yes.
So I don't know if he has a need or not. He's been on it for 8 years. What happens with this? You assess him, he gets kicked off the list potentially. How do I know when to come back? Because the whole reason I put him on the wait list is because I wanted to make sure whenever he had a need, he was on the wait list and I didn't have to start from the bottom.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I'm not sure. That's what's confusing to me.
It is very confusing, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's confusing statewide, because we as a state have told everyone, get your kid on the list, get your kid on the list, right? Make sure they're on the list. And then what happened is everybody's on the list, and there's like 38,000 people statewide on the list. And then what we find is that a lot of people on that list, when you contact them, they don't have a need right now, but they wanted to be on the list to make sure, just like you, they weren't at the bottom. So instead, because your son is on the list, he'll get assessed, and that assessment will determine you have an immediate need, something that needs addressed right now. You have a current need, you'd stay on the list.
So what
Okay.
I'm wondering is if he doesn't, then when do I come back?
Right?
Like I
If
don't
he-
want to come back and then it takes me 10 years to
Right.
get something.
That
That's
is
my worry.
that is a very good point. And so the premise is basically 12 months. And so what it is that if your son is assessed and is determined he doesn't have a current need right now, then yes, you would not be on the list anymore. And when he has a need, you would then call back the county board, he would be assessed. And if it was immediate, then we have to handle that immediately. If it was something that could be handled within the next 12 months, then the SSA is required to meet with the team and develop a plan to help address that need.
Okay, so this is, again.
No, that's fine, good
confusing me.
questions.
So, like, the reason I wanted to be on the list, I'm thinking, when he turns 18, I would potentially like him to be able to live on his own, like to work, do transportation. So then do I come back when he's 17? I mean, I don't want to wait till he's 18, because then it's potentially, I don't know when to come back. I guess that's what's confusing me.
Yeah, and I would, you'll have an SSA, and so when he's of transition age, which would be 14 to 22, that SSA can help you, and you can kind of bounce off them, okay, when do I need to do this? And they'll be able to help you with that.
Okay, because I'm a super planner. So
I understand, I am
really
too.
like, when should I do this
Yes.
to make sure that I'm not missing
Yes.
out?
No,
Okay.
great questions, and I think probably lots of the same questions throughout the audience, so thank you. Yes,
If you're already on a level 1 and you need to go to a higher level,
Yes.
is there a waiting list for that as well?
it's all gonna be one waiting list, so it will all be one,
So
so
even
it,
though you're already on a waiver,
correct, so if you're on the level 1 waiver, you would be assessed, and if it was assessed that you had an unmet need and it was immediate, you needed more than what you have, we'd have to work to deal with that immediately. If it was a current need, meaning something needs to be done within the next 12 months, then your team would work with you on that, and you would be on that list.
Well, we did have an immediate need and it has not been addressed and it's been over 30 days, so.
our SSA's never ever done anything with us.
Okay, you can stay after and we'll talk about that specific case and we'll see what we can help you with.
It's a
Okay.
medical need and
Okay,
quite important.
okay, yeah, stay after and we'll chat. And if anyone else has other really case-specific questions, please stay after. I'm happy to talk those out with you because I understand it is confusing. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
So-
Don't apologize. Great questions.
Since he's on the waiting list, someone's going to call me at some point in time and say, hey, you need to set up and do an assessment since he's on the waiting list.
Correct.
What is an assessment consist of?
The assessment, and actually, on this here, the website, fixthelisinfo.com is on here, and actually the assessment is on there. So
Okay.
you can actually go on and see it live, okay? And the assessment is electronic. It really takes all kind of objectivity out of it, which I think is really good. And if it's an assessment that's kind of, if this, then this. So meaning, I ask a question about your needs. If you have a need, then it continues on and asks more questions. If you don't, it stops. I think it's a really good assessment because it's very consistent and it 100% focuses on your needs. So I would urge you to go on and look at the assessment. And if you have, questions about it or whatnot, you can certainly ask your SSA as well. Did you have another question?
She had a question, I can wait.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, so my daughter's 23, she's been on the waiting list for 18 years. Don't get your hopes up. And so I would have her answer the questions. Because if I answer the questions, whenever we do any of these once a year, we do them, it's like, you can handle it, you're in good enough shape. It's like she outweighs me, she's bigger than I can't. And you're like, you're okay. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. So, the way we're
So I
going
make
to,
her answer all the questions, and then they put in with, well, but you can do it. I don't live in my house.
right. And so, very good point. And we actually, it's gonna be a little bit different instead of your specific SSA doing the assessment, because everybody on the waiting list is gonna need assessed. And then everybody coming in new to services is gonna need assessed. It's a lot of assessments. So we are actually gonna have some specialized staff trained in just doing this assessment, that are really well-versed in assessing and kind of looking at immediate needs, as well as those that are really well-trained in community resources. So that staff is actually gonna come in and do the assessment and schedule it with you. And so absolutely, I would urge you to attend and help answer those questions and offer information and input. So I think it will make for a much better assessment process. especially because we're trying to have staff that are really specially trained. And actually, in order to do the assessment, you actually can't do it until you've gone through a training. And I think that's really important and key as well, that consistently people are being trained and we're making sure that people can assess people really well. Great question, so thank you. Any other? Yes.
I'm not positive that I understood her question, but are you saying if an assessment is done and it's asked, can the individual prepare a meal? The answer may be no, but someone says, but her mom can. That the assessment should be based strictly on the ability and the needs of the individual and not the support that's around them, because she may not be.
Maybe
She doesn't want
dead,
it for
and
the
then
rest
it's
of
gonna
her
be an
life.
immediate
Yeah.
need, so within that 12 months after I croak and they find me. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I
No,
don't
no,
mean to be
you're
negative
fine.
like
No,
that, but-
you are totally fine. The assessment does not go into that deep of detail about preparing meals and things like that. It is really addressing someone's current and immediate needs and whether or not they need something in order to be able to really live their daily life. So it does not ask questions like that. Okay? And so I think that in our current emergency assessment doesn't either. It really focuses on what are the risks, what's in place now, what would happen if you received a waiver or services, what else has been tried, things like that. And we have a really good assessment, and the state's assessment is very similar, asking some of those same questions, but I think it takes all objectivity out of it, and the assessment actually tells you whether someone has an immediate or a current need. Yes?
So like what she was saying, that, would that mean something like if she couldn't cook her own meals, then you would use that other scenario, not the emergency one, but it would be something that you would look at the resources in the
Yes,
community, maybe
correct.
Meals on Wheels or something or whatever.
absolutely.
Is that what
Very,
you're talking about?
yes, very good point. So people might have needs that need addressed, like you said, need help cooking, need help cleaning. And so for so long, we've really been focused on what number am I on the list, and what we really want to put the focus on, what are your needs and how are we going to help you address them? Okay, so great point, thank you. Any other question? Okay, we've kind of addressed what happens if someone has an emergency. You need to let your SSA, or if you don't have one, the county board knows so we can address it. What's an immediate need? And that by rule is, it means a person is in a situation that creates a risk of substantial harm to themselves, their caregivers, or another person if something does not happen within 30 days. So it's the same thing as it is right now. So I think that's good consistency-wise, that some of those things are staying the same, and they're really just trying to address consistency and making sure that we have enough resources to serve everyone that has needs. What if a person's needs change? You definitely need to let your SSA know, because if someone's needs change, we can absolutely come out and reassess. Okay? What happens when a person moves on the waiting list to another county? It's important to note that there are lots of people that are on multiple counties' waiting lists. And so with this new rule, you will be on the waiting list if you have a current need, and it will only be the waiting list in your county of residence. Okay, so then the county that you reside in then is responsible then for the assessment and the determination going forward. Okay? If a person is already on the waiting list, what's gonna happen? And so your question kind of answered that, so thank you. You're gonna get an assessment. So everyone that's on the current waiting list needs to be assessed by 2020. So we are going to have our current waiting list, which they're gonna call a transitional list, and we're gonna start assessing people on that list and determining where they go, okay? If you or your loved one is assessed and you don't have a current or immediate need, you will of course have due process. You'll have that ability to appeal just like you have right now. That doesn't mean that your team won't address that need. It just means that you're not on the list for a current need. What will happen during the transition? We're gonna have specialized staff doing those assessments, meeting with teams and making sure that we're assessing everyone's needs and finding where they go. And then there'll be lots of team meetings to help people get the resources and services that they need in order to address those. Are there any questions about these frequently asked questions? You'll notice on the last page, there's just a little bit on there about some terminology, just some different language, and I thought that that was helpful. Again, you'll notice they're really putting the focus on need. And I think that although it's confusing and change is always hard, the change is really needed because we're not addressing everyone's need. And there's lots and lots of people sitting on that list for 18 years or longer. And so we really need to put the focus on what's your need and how can I help you? Instead of what's your number and as a family, how am I gonna get my waiver? We are committed to having a really efficient process with people that are really well trained to assess situations. And I think we're really confident that lots and lots of work has been put into this in an effort to get the resources to where they need to go. Okay, so if you have case-specific questions, please stay after and I'm happy to chat with you. I am gonna just really quickly go ahead and go over Provider Guide Plus, unless there's any other questions about the waitlist. Yes?
If it's kids, there's like one SSA per Southgate, is that correct?
Yes.
So we would go through her?
Yep, you would just let Becky know.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, speaking of kids, there's probably going to have to be, more people to help with kids because there's a lot. Our population is really, really growing, and that's something that's really important to us, that we're assessing everyone and making sure people get what they need. So, yes.
Are they doing the assessments now, or do you call in?
Oh, good question. Actually, this rule goes into effect July 1st, so the assessments will start July 1st.
How do you determine who they're going to do the assessments on first?
They are actually going to start doing them at people's annual team meetings. And if you want one before then, certainly call us and let us know. Okay? Yes.
So, my son doesn't have an annual team meeting, so how does that work?
So, we would just then be going down the list, and you're looking at, we're starting July 1st. I know it seems like 2020 is so far away, right? It's not. It's only a year and a half. It will really fly by. So if you feel like you have a need and it needs addressed right now, call us and let us know so we can prioritize you and get you assessed first. Okay? Yes?
We're doing an IEP?
Yes. Yeah, everyone, right now what the department wants us to do is have it at everyone's annual team meetings. Try to maybe have a pre-meeting beforehand and do the assessment and then have your annual team meeting. And if you don't have an annual team meeting, we'd look at your IEP, or we would just be calling to schedule something. Okay, good question. Thank you for the reminder of that date, because I forgot that.
One last one,
Yes.
sorry.
Sure. No, you're
If they have an emergency or a need before then, go through the normal process?
Yes, go through the normal process. Yeah, yes.
One of the things that we focused on that you said was to get our kids onto the list as soon as possible, so that if there was a situation where it's happening, be already set up for services and transition is painful for the individual, losing a parent and going through that transition. As the state, and realize this is obviously you're just the messenger. Has the state given any thought to that aspect, and is there anything that they've come up with to deal with that issue?
It's a really good question, and so then you didn't hear it. The question was, for so long we've been told, make sure your child is on the wait list, so if heaven forbid an emergency did happen, they're on the list and you're prepared. And has the state thought about that at all? I'm sure they have. I'm not sure what their ideas or resources for that are, but I certainly know I've thought about that, as have my staff. And I think that even though you're on the waiting list, if an emergency happens, there's not any difference if you weren't on the waiting list and you call and say you have an immediate need. We'd still have to assess you. We'd still have to jump in and help you right then. We're very fortunate that we have been able to, over the past couple of years, put a lot of focus into our emergency situations and develop respite, and develop services for our youth that I think have really been enhanced. It's something that obviously we know we need to keep working on, but it's something we're really committed to. So my hope is that we make that as smooth as possible for people, but it is something that is near and dear to our hearts, and it will continue in the same process now. If something happens, we're gonna jump in and have staff, help you and try to be there for you and support you.
I guess though, I'm asking more about in terms of the individual's ability to accept the change. God forbid, use any example, but if two parents are in a car accident, obviously that's an extreme situation, they're going to have to go through those changes. But one of the things that, I used to work with families about was you can get them on that waiver and get them home or whatever, at least they have their home setting already in place. So when there is a tragedy or what have you, they've already got some kind of comfort level.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm asking, has there been any talk at the state level of how to address that aspect of it, how to phase people into their whatever their lifestyle is going to be down the road before it becomes a tragedy and they have to.
It's a really good question. There has not been a lot of discussion about that, but I think from our perspective here is something that we need to work on and be really mindful of, and making sure that we're helping people transition as smoothly as possible when there is an emergency. So, but it's a really great point. So, are there any other questions about that? Okay. So I'm going to just really quickly, before I turn it over to Jessica for Participant Directed Goods and Services, go over Provider Guide Plus. Has anyone heard about Provider Guide Plus? Okay, good. So Provider Guide Plus is actually a new tool that was developed in Knox, Coshocton, and Cuyahoga County, and they came together with the Department and Ohio Association of County Boards and created ProviderGuidePlus.com, and it is an online resource that's like Yelp. Does everybody know what Yelp is?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go online, you know what it is, right, Matt? There you go. So you can click on a business, right, and learn about them, and you can also rate them and give a comment, right? And that's something statewide families have been very interested in. How can I rate providers? How can I give input? How can I look at ratings of other family members and get more information like that about the providers that may serve my loved one? So that's exactly what Provider Guide Plus is. It's an online tool that's free. Providers will be able to download all of their information. Families will be able to, starting in probably about mid-May, go on to ProviderGuidePlus.com and create a login with a password. And you'll be able to go in and research all of the providers in Stark County, and you will be able to rate and give a comment on them if you wish. Yes?
I'm flipping my hat now, but we're also a provider. So, would providers be able to respond to the comment?
Correct, yes. Providers are able to respond to the comment. If it's a negative comment, they get one rebuttal. So maybe someone says, hey, staff didn't show up, but I received poor services. As a provider, you could say, I'm so sorry that happened. Here's my phone number, please give me a call back. I want to handle that situation for you. If someone were to post something that was an MUI, it would not get posted. They won't post any confidential information. It would get routed. So it's very safe, very secure, but it's something that statewide families have really wanted, and it's also something providers have wanted to use as kind of an advertising tool for themselves that doesn't have any cost for them. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. So right now it's available, ProviderGuidePlus.com. You can go and look at it. You'll only be able to see Knox, Coshocton, and Cuyahoga counties, and we'll be sending out communication to everyone when it goes live, which is expected in mid-May.
Is that anonymous?
You have to create a login.
But I guess, could a provider go on there and write on themselves? Is there anything that would prevent that?
I guess potentially a provider could probably go in and say, I'm really great. But you do have to create a login, so, you know, there is the attempt there to try to minimize that and try to make sure it's legitimate.
Right, but just to kind of backtrack, my department does this. If someone sees a whole bunch of positive reviews and actually does the exact opposite of what you think it would do, nobody believes somebody's great. So even if providers would do that, I mean, I saw that, I'm like, yeah, I think somebody's making some stuff up. They had to have done something to fix somebody at least once.
That is it.
So-
I'm the same way.
And most of the time, people provide negative feedback rather than positive, so it's gonna probably be skewed the opposite way. So I think that the system in and of itself will kind of trade that, so you don't see it too much.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think it's great because it's something that families statewide have really wanted for a long time. So we're really excited. And as I said, we'll be sending out communication on that so you all can use it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jessica to talk about participant-directed goods and services.
Okay, so my name is Jessica Hoffarth, and I am a supervisor here in the SSA department. And I'm just going to give you a little overview of the new service, which is participant-directed homemaker personal care. So if anybody in here is on a self-waiver, you've kind of already been able to hire staff, choose staff through that waiver. However, this is being added to the IO and level 1 waivers. The intent is to give families and individuals more choice over their providers. So to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, you might have a neighbor or a friend who knows the person really well, who would be great at working with them and providing homemaker personal care. Under this service, that individual would have to be certified by the department, just like a regular independent provider would be under the Department of DD. And then the family, individual, or representative actually becomes the employer of that provider. So what that means is instead of having to take a list of standard trainings that are offered by the department, these providers have to take the MUI training and client's rights, and then as maybe the parent or the individual themselves would give personalized training to those employees and also supervise them in a more direct way. So we've seen this kind of come up here and there as a potential for folks. You do have to be living with family or on your own with the waiver in order to use this. So it can't be used in a group setting. So there is a fiscal management agency called Morning Sun, and they will help with those billing and documentation and taking things like taxes out of the paychecks. So they help us along with that piece. And the other piece is that you can choose to negotiate a rate with that independent provider. So again, maybe you have a family friend who knows the person served. They may say, I could do that for $12 an hour every day after they get home from day service. Whereas a typical HPC provider, independent and agency, there's set rates for that. So it will allow some people to receive a little more service on their waiver. Those were kind of the high points I wanted to hit on. Again, you do have to have level 1 IO or self-waiver in order to use the service. And what we've kind of been talking about with the SSAs is, you know, there's going to be very specialized situations where this fits. So if you have one of those waivers and this kind of sparks your interest, talk with your SSA. You also received this handout, which we got last week, and I found very helpful. I had looked at the rules and been to some trainings, but it really helps answer, you know, how would I go about doing this as a family or a participant on the waiver. Did I forget anything? No?
What
Question?
does PD PBGS stand for, and what is PBHP?
Okay, so, and I messed that up there. Look at it with my finger. So PBGS is Participant Directed Goods and Services. That is a service under the self waiver. However, they made a branch of that, which is the HPC service that is now available on IO and Level 1. So that's what those acronyms are. Yes. Other questions about that service or how it might be used? Okay. Do we have questions about anything else that we talked about this evening? Anybody think of anything else while we were?
Is anyone interested in possibly using participant-directed goods and services when it's available? You are, okay, good.
Yeah, we're paying out of pocket right now for a lot of these services.
You know, I just
Because
had
our
that
SSA
discussion.
hasn't been able to
Well,
help us, so.
This actually just started, like, March 1st, I think. I think we switched on self the middle of February, but then March 1st this started. So I've talked to a couple SSAs about families that I know are privately paying. The thing to remember with that is that the person would still have to get certified by DODD. They do waive the requirement for a GED or diploma with this, so I know a typical independent provider would have to have that under this service. That can be waived. So yeah, we're just starting, and actually we're training the SSAs officially Thursday. So they haven't even had the big, they've gotten these handouts, but haven't actually had the big training.
We actually have a group where they live called Your Home Court Advantage that we're paying, that at the senior living facility. Could a whole company like that be certified? Because there's
Under
different
IO and
people.
level 1, it would have to be the specific individual people. Okay.
It's not the same girl, is it?
It's a great question though, and I think that we're really hopeful that, statewide, there's, lots of issues with providers not always having enough staff. And so that's something we've really been working on with our Stark County providers and giving lots of supports to try to assist with that. There are some counties where it's really, really an issue. People have a waiver and they have a provider, but that provider doesn't have any staff to deliver services. So this really is something that can help with that, especially if you have a loved one, a neighbor, a close friend that, is willing to go through the training and certification to get certified to be able to be that provider. So it's something that we're really looking forward to and working this month on training everyone.
So someone wanted to become that, do they have to go through the DOD's application process? Things electronic, same thing?
Yes. It is a little bit different training-wise. There's less training that's required. But you as a family member can also say, I want to hire you and I want you to do some additional training.
So the 8 hours?
The 8 hours for this, you could choose to have them go through the 8 hours of required on DODD, or you can do 8 hours of your own training on the person's specific needs. So it would maybe be a parent or a guardian or natural support who is the representative helping hire and train the staff. They can say, I want to train you on the afternoon routine and how bath time goes, or anything that is specific to the person.
And then the family just signs off on that they've
Yes.
trained it?
Yes, there's actually a form that is filled out when somebody chooses to hire on somebody under this that the SSA would have, and the family member or the individual, if they're the ones who are doing their own training, which is very possible, would sign off on that, and we actually have to submit that to the department to show that training has been done.
What was the agency that you said helped with billing?
Morning Sun?
It's a company that's contracted with the state of Ohio to assist and provide the financial support for this particular service and all the services on the South Waiver. So Morning Sun would handle payroll. They would do handle
They are-
completely.
they
for
are
your
wonderfully
employee.
helpful.
Yeah.
You offer this service and go through and hire somebody, you may help your individual, or your individual signs off on the timesheets and so forth, and then the timesheets go to Morning Sun, and Morning Sun processes the payroll. Morning Sun also does the billing if necessary.
Are they local, is it all electronic?
No, it's all electronic.
It is
You would send
electronic.
everything to Morning Sun electronically.
Do they charge a fee for that?
No, it's paid for through the state of Ohio. Yeah, since the state of Ohio contracts with Morning Sun, there's no fee assessed to the individual served or the
Oh, they
employee.
do these that way.
It's only for this particular service for an IO level 1, but Morning Sun provides this financial fiscal service to all the different
Right.
waiver services.
And there is an administrative cost that is part of, built into
It's built into
the rate.
The rate,
for these.
right. It's built into the rate, but the employee doesn't pay it out of pocket.
Right.
You don't pay it out of your
Right.
pocket as an individual. It's just built into the actual rate that the provider is billing for their service.
So, we'll stick around for about 10 minutes or so, and they'll try to kick us out of here by around 6:30.
Just like one question you were
Yeah.
talking about, it's built in. So when you negotiate with them and you come up with a rate, it's not necessarily gonna be the rate they're gonna get.
Well, possibly, yes. What we got from the department is a very handy sheet that kind of guides us through that and says, if you decide to pay X amount, this is really what is charged to the waiver, or this is really what the staff would be paid, whichever way you want to look at it, but that would be to help when you're planning that service.
And we can help you with those details of financial. There's a little bit that kind of touches on that on the last page of your handout, but, you know, we have much more detailed information that really is a table that will show you exactly what it'll cost out of the rate the individual will earn. The details that we have on another kind of cheat sheet will give you examples. If you want to pay your staff $15 an hour, this is how much the reimbursement rate will be. If you want to pay your staff $12 an hour, this is how much the reimbursement rate. The reimbursement rate's always going to be a little higher because it's going to cover the administrative costs. Does that help answer your questions?
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Have a wonderful night. Hope to see you next month.